When you think of horror games, you probably think of something like Resident Evil, Amnesia, or Five Nights at Freddy's. These are games that are built to frighten you with the paranormal or the undead. The other week, I came upon a game that released in October of 2024, and it completely flew under my radar. This game is called Conscript. Conscript, at first glance, looked like it might have just been another World War zombie game, given that most horror games set in that time period tend to kind of take that route. So my assumption here ended up being extremely wrong. Conscript takes place in 1916 during the bloodiest battle of the Great War, Verdun. The battle itself was so horrific, it had casualties estimated to be around 700,000. Conscript puts you in the boots of a young man in the French army named Andre, as he must navigate his way through bloody trenches, ravaged fields, and ruined towns in order to find and rescue his younger brother Pierre from the invading German forces. At no point does Conscript ever try to throw some sort of paranormal twist into the narrative, because fighting in the Great War, especially at Verdun, is horrifying enough. You know, fellas, I'm starting to think this was not the heroic journey that was calling me. I miss my mom. While mechanically Conscript plays exactly like Resident Evil, just from a top-down perspective, there seems to be a lot more player choice involved with Andre's story. While it's not a vast amount of player autonomy, some choices you make will affect the outcome of the game's finale. It begs the question, just how badly do you want to save your brother? Will the horrors of war get to you and make you flee from battles like a coward, or are you going to stand and fight the invaders? You actually get an achievement in this game if you participate in every battle sequence and never flee from any fights. The combat in this game can be really intense, and just like any other survival horror game, you'll develop expert knowledge of what weapons to use and how to prioritize them in different situations. Sure, the shotgun's powerful blast can clear several small enemies really fast, but what are you gonna do when that's out of ammo and you got a big old German man with a shovel chasing you through the trenches? Your little rinky-dink pistol isn't gonna do much there. Your rifle is a good and reliable weapon for most fights until you realize you want to conserve that weapon for the flamethrower units who will torch you in an instant if you get too close. Now, weapons obviously very important to have in these types of games, but you also need to manage your inventory space so you can craft enough healing items like bandages to disinfect your wounds and heal any diseases you may have gotten from a rat's bite. Oh, what? You didn't know there were rats in this game? I hate to break it to you, Haas. There's rats in this game. Rats, while they're their own enemy type, kind of act more like obstacles. If you kill a lot of Germans in a section, rats will begin to eventually spawn in and feast on their corpses. If a rat detects Andre's presence, it will immediately turn to attack him, and it's never one rat, it will be at least two, usually a swarm of rats. And every time Andre gets bitten by a rat, he'll run the risk of getting diseased, and if he does, his health pool drops dramatically. You can prevent rats from spawning in by taking a grenade and finding a rat hole in the given area and tossing it in. However, that's going to mean you're going to have one less grenade to use against Germans in those larger combat sequences, and honestly, I stockpiled my grenades for those fights in particular, because they are really overwhelming, and those are great problem solvers. So the game really does make you choose when and where to use specific weapons, and make sure you learn that you should conserve specific ammo types. After each of these battle sequences, Andre will pass out either from an injury he sustained in the battle or even from exhaustion. It only happens a few times, and it kind of acts like an intermission between each chapter. When these events happen, Andre will dream of his life back at home with his mother and Pierre. With each dream sequence, we will find out something about him and his family. Most of this comes from Andre snooping around his brother's journal and reading each new entry, but some of it actually comes from the environment of the homestead itself. For example, in the second dream sequence, Andre is able to go into the backyard of his family home that was previously inaccessible. If we travel far past his mother's garden, we can find the family graves, and if you can recall any of Pierre's journal entries that you've read earlier, then you'll kind of make the connection that one grave is Andre and Pierre's father, a man who died at 40, and one of them is Andre and Pierre's grandfather, a man who died at 60. The saddest grave belongs to a 7-year-old girl who is presumably the youngest sibling to Andre and Pierre. So when Andre and Pierre are both conscripted to fight, it leaves their poor mother all alone at the homestead. These parts were some of my favorite because, for a small indie game, I felt like this was an excellent way to convey motivations of why we as a player would want to save Pierre, because in one of his journal entries, it is revealed to us that he actually lied about his age so he could fight in the Great War, believing it was going to be some great adventure. But that's not to say that the story takes a backseat when we're at the Battle of Verdun as Andre, but most of the narrative there kind of conveys the harsh reality of the battle from both sides, mainly from journal entries that Andre can find in medical tents or within bunkers. It's all really immersive and helps you really kind of realize the horror of the situation. This isn't a game that like tries to jump out and scare you. Okay, well, it does it twice, but it's mostly hitting you with the horrors of reality and just how terrible this battle was. The journal entries, while they conveyed stories to you, also contained hints on how to solve certain puzzles within the game, so Andre could progress the story or unlock secret items that he couldn't otherwise acquire. Andre will also meet several of his French comrades. His fearless captain is awesome, but he's very strict. He even gives Andre an order to rally up the men, and if anyone refuses to fight, then Andre should shoot them. He'll meet up with a soldier named Gaston, who is always asking for cigarettes, which is how the game uses currency. So you don't trade in anything but cigarettes. So if you want to get like extra ammo for Andre or healing items, or even if you missed a hidden item, a vendor will pick it up and sell it to Andre for cigarettes. And that's how the game kind of also conveys the story. Like, no one's using money, everyone's trading in cigarettes. And if you keep giving Gaston cigarettes throughout the game, by the final chapter, he'll give you a really powerful pistol as a reward. So if you see my boy Gaston, just let him smoke, man. This is hell. This is hell on earth. Then there's a character like Marcel, who always seems to be at the right place at the right time during the more vital moments of Andre's adventure. He even actually saves Andre from being killed by a German soldier in one of the chapters. Even though the game was short, I still remember all these characters, and I found the cast just to be pretty amazing, even if they weren't fully voice acted. The secret ending, or as I would call it, the real ending, was so tragic and devastating that it really put the war into a new perspective for me. I'm not going to spoil it here because I personally think that a lot more people should play Conscript. However, the new perspective I kind of gained is that there's so many games where like war is romanticized or like lets you live out a fantasy of being a hero, and Conscript does not do that. Sure, you'll feel accomplished if you get to survive Verdun and save Pierre, but the game's reality depicts a cycle of violence that just continues, and that war only just will keep taking even long after it's gone. And for that, I think Conscript is a must-play. The most impressive thing about this game is that it was developed by a singular person, Jordan Mochi. He's a part of a small team called Team 17, but he is solely credited for being the game's developer. The other credits that can be found are like for the game's actors, because there are German and French voice acting, credits for casting directors, marketers, some of the more important behind the scenes roles, but Jordan Mochi himself like developed the whole game, and I think it's just kind of mind-blowing that he made such a great product within 5 years, because I feel like there's been other games that have come out recently that have taken longer that I just don't like, and they're from bigger studios, and I think you can put indie games and AAA games on their own pedestals, but I just haven't been this fully into a game and like oh, I gotta beat it, I gotta complete it, like I was with Conscript, because other than like Baldur's Gate 3, which of course an RPG nerd like me would love, Conscript was great, and I honestly love the change of environment and it's how it was uniquely set in World War I. So I honestly, congratulations to Jordan for making such an excellent game. Games like Conscript are, in my opinion, the main projects that will, like, save the industry. I'm not saying that Conscript's carrying everything on its back, but you got, like, games like Balatro, Crowd Country that I've reviewed on this channel, and those are some of the more impressive, some of the better games I played recently. And even if you go to, like, the double A scene, you'll find games like that I've reviewed, like Tales of Kinzera Zhao, games with smaller budgets. Those games are, I feel like there's so much more effort into those games nowadays, and I've been more keen on focusing in on that scene. And I'm glad I did, because Conscript was an amazing experience. So people, I'm going to tell you, play independent games. There's this a massive ocean of undiscovered talent out there. See ya.